Hey friends, happy Wednesday. It has been a while since I hopped on a video with you all to have a conversation. So I thought today might be a good day to hop back in and talk about a topic that has been on my heart lately, or rather a question that has been in the forefront of my mind recently. And I think about this question relatively often, not because people ask me directly, but because occasionally I am asked certain questions, and I feel like the root of that question is this question of whether I regret choosing pharmacy as a profession, or whether if I had a chance to do it all over again, knowing then what I know now about where my career would go, if I would have still chosen to go down the pharmacy route, because, technically, like, I don't need this degree to do what I do now. If we haven't had a chance to connect or meet before, or if you've never popped on one of these Wednesday videos, my name is Megan Freeland, and I'm a public health pharmacist turned health content strategist. So I develop content marketing strategies for various health companies, and I also teach pharmacists and other healthcare providers how to replace a portion of their primary source of income through freelance health content writing. And so if you are watching live or catching the replay, feel free to introduce yourself in the comments, leave a question or comments, and I'll see them either now or later. But because of the career path that I have and working in health content writing rather than a more traditional type of pharmacy, I think people sometimes are wondering whether I feel like I took the right path, or whether if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would have chosen maybe to get some other type of degree or not have gone to pharmacy school. And I will admit that my perspective on this question now is a lot different than my perspective on it when I was in pharmacy school. There were definitely specific times in pharmacy school where I remember sitting in class and feeling like I am not supposed to be here. I do not need to be here. And the reason for that is because, as I often say, I did not go into pharmacy with the intention of practicing pharmacy in the traditional sense. I went to pharmacy school because I wanted to learn more about drugs and how they worked. And going to pharmacy school was the only way that I knew how to do that. I did not realize how narrow the paths that are specifically taught or talked about in most pharmacy programs were. I thought that I would get more exposure to different avenues and opportunities in pharmacy school, not realizing that pretty much the only guidance there was going to be was if you wanted to go down the community path, or if you wanted to go down the residency and hospital clinical path. I didn't know that in order to figure out what existed outside of that, that it would be a very individual mission that I would be embarking upon. And so did not, I didn't really know how to deal with that. And because of that, when I was sitting in different classes or different lectures or different presentations that were all geared towards those two paths, I felt frustrated. Um, I felt lonely because a lot of my classmates and the people around me, they did go into pharmacy to practice pharmacy. Like, they were trying to go into retail, they were trying to do a residency, they were trying to work in a hospital. Like, they were kind of um in those two paths. There were very few people, at least that I knew of my classmates, who were outside of that box and were intentional about being outside of that box. Um, and so that led to a feeling of loneliness. And like, I didn't really have anyone, neither a peer nor a mentor, who really understood how to help me. And that's not to say that there was nobody. Like, I definitely had a couple of mentors who tried their best to support me in whatever ways they could, and I really appreciated that. But on the whole, it was a lonely situation. Hey Lee, it's nice to meet you. Pharmacist for 15 years, and you're interested in what I'm doing. I'm really glad that you're tuning in. I would love to know more about specifically what you're interested in. Is it medical writing, health content writing? Let me know what you're interested in. The other thing I felt was very restricted because of those very narrow career paths, and it felt like, oh my gosh, if I don't figure this out myself, I'm never going to figure it out. Like, cause I'm the only person who's going to help me figure out what I can do outside of these two narrow pharmacy career paths. And so in those moments, like sitting in those rooms, feeling those emotions, there were 100% times when I was like, I made the wrong choice. Like, I should have gone to public health school like I wanted to, even though my mom did not want me to go to public health school. I should have, there were times when I thought maybe I should have taken a gap year after college to get a better grasp on what it was that I wanted to do. Or maybe I should have I don't think I thought about going to a different pharmacy school, because I think many were similar in that there weren't a whole lot of other paths that were taught. But I just felt like I was in the wrong place. Cool, health content writing. Well, you're in the right place, Lee. You're in the right place. I'm just sharing about whether, as a health content writer, whether I feel like, whether I regret going into pharmacy or choosing pharmacy as the profession that I went into, considering that technically, as a health content writer, you don't need a pharmacy degree or need a healthcare degree at all. I am of the belief that the more experience and the more education you have in some type of healthcare field, the better that you are as a health content writer. And that's why I believe more health professionals and healthcare providers should be health writers. But technically, it's not necessary, right? So in pharmacy school, the regret was definitely there, but I was like, I've already taken out these loans. I've already put in, this was probably around the P2, P3 year mark. So I'm like, I've already made it through so much. Like, I'm literally just not going to turn around. Like, I'm going to finish this out, and it's just going to have to be what it is. So if you have found yourself feeling regret about going into pharmacy or choosing a pharmacy degree, but not really wanting to practice in that sense, or regret for any reason, I think it can be helpful to think about like what emotions or feelings that sense of regret could be stemming from. Again, mine were frustration, loneliness, and feeling restricted. I think that it's helpful to identify what those feelings are for you that are causing you to maybe question whether you've gone down the right path. What I have done since then, since progressing in my career, since like graduating, doing a fellowship, doing all of these things, entering into adulthood and getting more settled in where it is that I do want to be, I in hindsight, I don't feel regret, right? I'm very grateful to have my pharmacy degree. I look at it as an asset. I look at my pharmacy education as an asset. Your degree, whether it's a bachelor's of pharmacy or a doctor of pharmacy, your pharmacy education and your pharmacy experience, whatever that looks like, those are both assets. Um, the education that you have as a pharmacist allows you to take what you know and apply it to a variety of different settings, right? Not just pharmacy, but a variety of different settings. The network that you built, whether through school or through training programs or through the jobs that you've held in this time, these are all assets. And this is a network that you wouldn't have been able to generate if you had not been, getting that pharmacy degree. You would have had a different network. And that's not to say that it would have been worse, but it would have been different. So whatever your network is, that is an asset. The skills that you've gained in your role as a pharmacist, whether you are communicating with patients on a daily basis, or you're liaising with insurance companies or healthcare providers on a daily basis, or you're doing all of that and more. All of the skills that you're using in your profession, in your day to day, those are all assets that other people don't have. And this is whether you're a health content writer or a medical writer or something else. Like you have the education, you have the network, you have skills, you know how to think like a pharmacist. Um, these are all things that are extremely helpful and relevant for you. Um, I know that when I talk to a lot of people and tell them what I do as a health content strategist, there's oftentimes a comment like, "Oh, you don't even need that pharmacy degree." And I've even said myself, "Oh, I took a more expensive roundabout way to public health or to health content strategy." But the truth is, I wouldn't be in the position that I am today had I not had that pharmacy degree and the other public health related experiences that I've had. I think that as a health writer, having the network, the education, the skills, the knowledge of how to think as a pharmacist, the knowledge of how to research information, all of those things help me bring more value to the clients that I work with. And even before I became a health content writer, specifically when I was in more regulatory role working in public health, all of these things were also assets in that situation. So that's why I'm also saying, like, this isn't just relevant for people who are aspiring to be health content writers. What I'm saying right now is relevant to any type of role or profession you're thinking about. Because when I was working in that regulatory public health setting, there was an opportunity that I had to participate in a epidemiological investigation in Panama, and the source of or the rationale for that investigation was because there was an event that had happened in a hospital NICU in Panama, and I guess there should be a content warning on this. In that event, there were several infants who died in a NICU in a very short period of time, like in 24 to 48 hours. And so the CDC was called in invited to come down and help participate in this investigation. And one of the theories was that there was something pharmacy related or toxicological and pharmacy related that was going on. I was the only person on that team who had any type of pharmacy experience, who had experience with sterile compounding and specifically with the solution that was under investigation. I was an asset in that setting because of my pharmacy education, because of my pharmacy experience, because at the time I was a pharmacy intern at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And sterile compounding was what I did every week for 4 years. So these were all assets that were relevant to that public health setting that nobody else had because they weren't pharmacists. They didn't have a pharmacy degree. They didn't have a pharmacy background. They knew the principles of like, the clean room and sterile processes and operations, but they didn't know the details, and I did. So that's just an example of what I mean by like your degree, your education, your experience is an asset no matter what you're applying it to. And that's the reason that I don't regret choosing pharmacy as a profession or going this roundabout way when I've decided that I want to focus on health content writing. So I encourage you also to just kind of reframe the way that you look at your pharmacy degree, regardless of how you feel about where you currently are in your career, in your role, in your trajectory, thinking about the degree on its own rather than regretting the route you took. Figure out how you can use that pharmacy degree and that pharmacy experience as an asset in the future. Think about different ways that you can apply it, different settings that you can apply it to, different opportunities that you can leverage it for. And hopefully, even if not right now, right, hopefully in the future, that you can look back and in retrospect say, I'm really grateful that I had this degree, that I had this education, that I have this experience, that I have this network. I think if we work on reframing and deciding that you're going to use this asset for something that's more meaningful for your life and that's whatever you consider meaningful to be, then that can kind of help you have a different perspective on having chosen pharmacy as the area that you wanted to go into. So those are just a few thoughts. I would love to know if you've ever had this experience of feeling a little bit regretful about choosing pharmacy, especially given the state of the profession right now. I know that it's something that other people have experienced as well. So I'm definitely open to talking more about it. I know as a health content writer, I'm so grateful that I have this pharmacy degree because I've been able to leverage that in so many ways. So again, if you have questions or comments, feel free to drop them, even if you're catching the replay. And I look forward to talking more about this topic. Have a good night.